Hey, healthy humans. I'm Melissa Uchida, and welcome to the Healthy Human Project. So, today we are talking about samskaras, and these are habits. They're unconscious patterns that we have, and we have no idea that we have them, obviously, because they're unconscious. Now, our life is our life because of a series of decisions and choices that we have made throughout our life, and we might not even realize that they're decisions or choices. But when there's an area of our life that we are not happy with, that we're not satisfied with, you don't feel content, maybe you feel restless or even like, just screaming to change. There's something about your life that you go, I can't stand this anymore. It's because there's a samskara, there's a habit, there's a pattern, there's an unconscious pattern, and many of them go through the family line. So if your mom, your same-sex parent usually had that, not always same-sex parent, but can be, and had that, you probably have it yourself. I noticed that I judge my mom quite a bit, and when of course, right? It's the three fingers coming back at me. Anytime we're pointing fingers at someone else, we want to turn it around and look back at ourselves. So that's the mirror being reflected back on us. But samskaras, it's important for us to start to identify them because in order to change our lives or an aspect of our lives, we have to be aware of what we could not see before. So we have to invite in this awareness, being able to expand our perspective to see something that we didn't see, so that we can, once we are aware of what we weren't aware of, then we can see the behavior, the thought, the phrase that we repeat. It might be, a lot of times it's language, it's a thought, it's a belief, it's a behavior. All of those are samskaras. So I always try to get to the belief. I try to go all the way back rather than just changing the behavior and just changing the language. You change the thought or you change the belief, and that will change everything afterwards. So when we can do that, we can start to change things, and we're moving the needle forward. Every single day, we're just making small steps, moving the needle in the direction of the life that you want to live. So, how do we go about being aware or unaware? Today, we're going to talk about going through some quick ways that you can start to become more aware, and then we'll do an exercise at the very end. It's one of my favorites for identifying samskaras. Okay, next week we'll talk about reprogramming and how to do that. So once we're aware, how can we have to be aware that there was an obstacle that's keeping us from our highest path. Second thing we do once we are aware is we get clarity on what it is that we do want. So we know this is what we don't want. Now we need to clarify, well, what exactly is it that we do want? And a lot of people get stuck there. I find myself going there if I'm not aware and practicing. We can get stuck focused on what we don't want. Well, the law of attraction says what you, and this was a message I got from Spirit as well, where you place your attention is what you will see. Where you focus is what you are going to see. That is what your perspective will be. So whatever it is that you are focused on, you're going to see more of it. So we don't want to focus on the problem, right? We don't want to focus on what we don't want. We need to focus on what we do want. And often we need to get clear about what it is that we do want because we just aren't sure. We haven't given ourselves time to go, what is it that I do want? Or a lot of times we have beliefs, limiting beliefs that keep us from experiencing, from believing, from having faith that we could have what we want. Then we have to, once we clarify what we want, we reverse engineer it. We work backwards. So here it is. Excuse me. I didn't tell him I was recording. So he says, you didn't tell me that. Yes. Okay. So once we have clarity on what we want, then we reverse engineer it. We go backwards and go, okay, so now this is where I am. This is all going to be more of next week too. This is where I am. This is where I want to be. Now we go backwards. Who's the person that I actually need to be to go backwards? And when we go backwards, it helps us to be able to go, oh yeah, I'm up here, and you're looking back at the self you are now and saying, all right, What are all the things that I need to be up here? Who do I need to be to get up there? Who is that person? How does that person think? How does that person behave? And we reverse engineer. We're literally reprogramming ourselves. Then we create a new pattern, and then we repeat the new pattern until the new pattern has outgrown or become deeper than the old pattern. And that is consistency and time over a long period of time with enthusiasm. And that's according to Yoga Sutras, but it's also just according to experience. Anyone who's ever changed something about themselves, you know that you have to repeat the new pattern over and over and over again until it is completely ingrained. Now, how can we increase our awareness? How do we become aware of what we are blind to? It's called ignorance, right? Ignorance. When we don't see something, we just don't know. We are no idea. How do we become aware of it? A few different ways. The first one, mindfulness practices. So when you start to practice mindfulness, whether that's with yoga, a yoga asana, whether it's meditation, whether it's walking meditation, whether it's mindfulness, just doing the dishes, or being present, scheduling time where your phone is down and you are completely present with whatever it is you are doing. In those mindfulness practices, we start to add the mindfulness into our everyday lives, and you'll start to notice the samskaras because it allows us a pause. It allows us some space between an event and our reaction to the event. And that space, that pause, is essential in being able to identify patterns that aren't working for us, patterns that are not in our highest interest. So when we start to increase that time between the event and the reaction, that's a beautiful space to be in. So you could start there, just playing around with, all right, I'm going to count to 10. That's something my 7-year-old and I are working on is, all right, when there's an event and there's a reaction, what can we do before the automatic response? We count to 10, we count to 20. Sometimes we count backwards from 100, or we do 10 jumping jacks. It can be, oh, I'm going to take 5 breaths, or I'm going to close my eyes. I'm big into giving myself, for me, I give myself a timeout if my reaction has gotten, if I feel the heat coming, I'm like, oh, I'll be right back. I'll be back in a minute. Go to the bathroom, wherever it is. Then another great technique, the second one, is when you feel what we call a negative emotion, and I'm just calling it negative emotion because you'll know what those are, right? The negative emotions, we want to look behind that emotion. So usually the negative emotion comes up and we have an instant reaction. We've been practicing mindfulness, so now we have a pause. And now we get to look behind the emotion, because often our first emotion is a defensive motion. It's an attack motion. It's going to push something away. It's somehow going to protect us. And we want to move behind that emotion to find the hurtness, to find the vulnerability. And I love these emotions, feelings chart. You can get them, they're free online. I happen to love the pillow. I got this on Etsy because there's something about it where I can just, when I'm experiencing an emotion and I don't know what it is, I come and I give it a big squeeze and I take a few breaths. You can punch it, you can throw it, you can do whatever you want with it too. And I look at it because we generally kind of just put our emotions here, right? Anger, disgust, happy, surprise, and fear. But when we look at all of these other emotions, critical, distant, frustrated, aggressive, hateful, threatened, hurt, sarcastic, skeptical, suspicious, withdrawn, irritated, infuriated, hostile, provoked, all these emotions, when we can identify one of these emotions, if I can go out here and I can go, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I'm feeling. I'm feeling dismayed. I'm feeling shocked. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling worthless or inferior. When we can identify those emotions, we can better identify where they came from. And when we can identify where they came from, we have the ability to let go of them, because usually they came from a time when we were really young, when we didn't know better, when we had very little life experience. And so we were in a situation, an event where we learned this feeling, and then that feeling started to become ingrained. And then another event led to that feeling, and another event led to that feeling, and another event led to that feeling, to where we go, wow, oh my gosh, I've got this life pattern of having this feeling over and over and over again. And why? The world is out to get me, or whatever it is, or I have the word. I don't even want to say those things, because I don't believe those things. But there were times that I have. And so it takes programming, reprogramming. It takes changing that belief, that behavior, that thought, to say, oh, no, wait a second, where did that come from? And I'm going to let that go. I choose to release it. Okay. The third, I keep looking at my notebook, sorry. The third way is to ask a trusted friend. Now, this one can get really tricky. And well, it depends. You can use family, but friends and family, you want someone who will be honest, and who really loves you, and who wants what's best for you, and who will be honest in a kind way. Because when we ask family to mirror back to us what they're seeing, you'll get an honest answer, and you might not like it. And it's also okay to not agree with what they say. Now, so you would ask them, hey, do you see any patterns in me that are holding me back, that I don't see? Do you hear me complaining about the same thing over and over and over again? Do you hear me judging or criticizing someone or something? Do you hear me talking badly about myself? Do you hear me, what do you observe in me that I do over and over that I just don't seem to see? And then make sure to thank them when they give you their feedback. You thank them. You don't have to agree with it, and sit with it for a while. Write it down and sit with it. Look at it. You might even put it under your pillow. Say, can I have more awareness about this? Because we're all disco balls, and we all have different, many different little facets that we reflect out to people. And really what we're doing is we're reflecting back to them a part of themselves, and they are reflecting back to us a part of ourselves. And we don't often see what they're reflecting back to us. So that's a really great one. My kids are pretty amazing when it comes to reflecting things back to me. And I don't always agree right away, but I always reflect on it and make changes to my behaviors, thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and get really clear about my intention. Because if I'm not clear about what my intention is in any situation, I'll default to my automatic programming, and often my automatic programming doesn't take me in the direction I want to go. My automatic programming is going to take me in some other direction. And so I'm hoping, so as we're working on this journey of becoming better versions of ourselves, so that we can make a difference in the world. That's what this is all about, right? Becoming better versions of ourselves so that we can also help those around us become better versions of themselves, so that we can make a difference in the whole world. And wouldn't that be really wonderful? Yeah. So the next one, the fourth way, is life's veers. Veers. We know those veers, right? You're going along in life, and suddenly, boom, it's like you got T-boned by something, and your life takes a whole different path. And life turns upside down. Life's veers are super scary, and they're a time of uncertainty. They're a time of vulnerability. They're usually a time of stripping down your identity and having to really surrender and go, okay, I am rolling with the tides of life. And they're also beautiful times for identifying patterns that weren't working for us, patterns that we no longer serve us. I call it pruning. It's getting rid of the things that don't serve us. So in life's veers, if you are in a big transition period, it's time to be gentle with yourself. So once you get through the meat of it and the really the early stages, then you can start to explore. Go, what are some, as you start to reemerge into your new life, what are some traits that I don't want to carry with me into this new stage of my life? Is there a, what about my old life did I not like? What about my old life was I not satisfied with? And then looking at that, and you could even make a list. It doesn't have to even be all in one. I would say pick one, don't pick several, just pick one and go, I'm going to work on this month. I am working on this change this month. More and more things. The more fluent we get at this, the more, I mean, every single day I am identifying samskaras and making changes. And they're small, they're all teeny tiny small changes. But doing it consistently over time, oh my gosh, life just changes. My perspective of life. I mean, we can open up to this whole new life that we didn't even know existed. Yeah. So, okay, so the veers, and then this is the last one. It's 5. I call it the tip of the iceberg exercise. So with the tip of the iceberg, we know that there is, just give me my pen. We have an iceberg. And up here is what we see. All of this is underwater, right? We don't see it, it's invisible. This is the big explosion. So when you've had someone who says something to you and you have this instant reaction and go, oh my gosh, I don't know why I was so mad. I got so frustrated. I just blew up. I couldn't control myself or whatever it was. Something sent you over the edge. Tip of the iceberg. So come up with grab a piece of paper and a pen, first of all, and identify a tip of the iceberg moment in the last couple of weeks. And we're going to break it down. That's all. Break down the tip of the iceberg. So you see the event. What's the feeling that you have from that event, from the tip of the iceberg? Now let's identify the feeling. So we look onto our color wheel, our emotions wheel. That's better. And it's this was, this pillow, the one thing I will say that I don't love, your feelings are valid. I would take these and I would take it out here because this sounds kind of like, I'm not big into, well, I'm going to justify how I'm feeling and this is how I'm feeling. And so it's valid because I'm feeling it. I don't buy that. We're programmed to feel a certain way. We're programmed and we have an automatic response. Because you have a feeling does not make it valid. Because you have a feeling, you've got the feeling. It's a physiological response. Your body is having it, but it doesn't make it like valid or not valid. It just is. So instead, I would make it more like, do you know your feelings? Do you know what you are feeling? Like it should be something like that. So that's my suggestion to the manufacturers of this pillow it's super soft and I love it. Anyway, okay, so at the top of the iceberg, what is the feeling? So let's say we had a feeling where all of your work friends go out after work and, didn't invite you, something, okay? So it's just something like this. I think most of us can probably relate to at some point feeling worthless, insignificant, inferior, disrespected. Yeah. I mean, most of us have felt these, right? At some point. So you go, okay, now let's break it down a little bit more and go, all right, were we feeling any of these then? Humiliated, rejected, submissive, insecure, anxious, scared. These all fall under the umbrella of fear. And fear is so powerful. Fear, they say, and I believe this, we make our decisions out of fear or out of love. And we can't make them out of both at the same time. So often we ping pong back and forth between fear and love, fear and love, fear and love. Which one would we go with? Well, we want to choose love because fear is so powerful. So let's go back. Here's your feeling, identify the feeling, and then we'll go back through your life. And it doesn't have to be heavy. Don't bring up any big traumas. You're just kind of like skimming through and going, okay, where else have I felt that in my life? What other times have I felt that in my life? What other events were there? And you're just tracing them back lightly into the very first time that you felt humiliated, inadequate, worthless, unimportant, insignificant, rejected, unwanted. Look at all the people there and look at your small self, and with lots of love and compassion. Yeah. I mean, your heart is with this small child. So you are holding your small child. You are there with your small child, watching as they feel this and looking at the situation now with your adult eyes going, oh, I mean, if we were an adult watching a parent or a coach or someone, and most parents, they don't know. Parents don't know that that's how they made their children feel most of the time, you know. So but we would look at that small child and we would go, oh my gosh, my heart breaks for you, this feeling of that. But now we are older, we are experienced, we are wiser, so we can look back at this child and say, oh my gosh, I see, you should not feel this way, you were not in the wrong, this was not your fault, you are not in the wrong, this is not your fault, this is not your feeling to carry with you for the rest of your life. This was being taught to you. This was being programmed into you. And we have to let it go. Now, as adults, we go, that feeling of worthlessness, unworthiness, insignificance, unimportance, rejection, that is not yours to carry with you for the rest of your life. You don't want to carry that sign, that lens on it. It's a perspective, it's a lens with which we experience the world. So it's important that we get rid of it. We identify it, and we have to identify it all the way to the root, and we forgive. We forgive ourselves for carrying that with us. We hold that inner child and say, oh, you are so precious and you are so beautiful and you are so strong and so resilient, and you don't need to carry that anymore. You can give that right back. You give that back. I don't take that gift anymore. I'm not carrying that with me any farther. Ho'oponopono is, we're going to talk about forgiveness in a week, but Ho'oponopono is one of my favorite forgiveness exercises. And it's so simple. We say, thank you. I love you. Please forgive me. Oh my gosh, there's 4. Oh my gosh, how could I forget? Thank you. I love you. Please forgive me. And I'm sorry. And they can go in any order. But you feel each line, any order, whatever order works for you. Might be, I'm sorry. I'm sorry a lot. You might not be sorry, but ho'oponopono on your small self. I'm sorry to I'm going to call them the aggressor. I'm sorry that you were in so much pain. That person was in some kind of pain to be causing pain to the small you. So when we start to open up and expand our awareness of what exists, and we get out of our small-minded thinking of this is just me, it allows us to be able to see our life and the world and our interaction with everybody as more than just this physical thing, our energy, our thoughts, our beliefs, our intentions. Because at bottom line, we want our intention for ourselves to be to live our highest path, right? We want our intention to be to feel good, to just live a good life for our families, our kids, to live good lives. That's what it's all about. To live good lives. And in order to do that, we expand our awareness. We identify our samskaras, our patterns, and then we make action to change them. Okay, next week, next week we're going to talk about replacing the samskaras and how to reprogram yourself. Once you've identified some samskaras that you're like, yeah, I'm not carrying that, I release it. We'll talk about ways to release them and prune and let go. And thanks so much. If you like this, if you like the content, if you like this podcast, if you like kind of where I'm going, please like and subscribe. It helps more than you know, and share it with anyone that you can. Put any comments. I would love to hear what it is that you want to talk about, what it is that you want to change in your life. And I am just a person on this journey. I've been on this journey for about 30-ish years, and really significantly in the last three, my spiritual journey has picked up, and I would like to serve in whatever way I can. So thanks so much for being here, and I will talk to you next time.